waters of Crystal Lake had always been darker than they should be, even on the brightest summer days. Local fishermen whispered about shadows that moved too deliberately beneath the surface, but Marcus Chen had never been one for superstition. That changed the day he saw the creature. He'd been testing water samples for the environmental agency when something massive brushed against his boat. The lake erupted in a churning mass of scales and ancient fury. Marcus caught one glimpse of serpentine coils and prehistoric eyes before razor teeth clamped down on his leg, dragging him into the depths. The creature, something that had no business existing in a New Jersey lake, held him suspended in the murky water. Marcus's lungs burned as consciousness faded, but in those final moments, he felt something else, a presence, old and patient, speaking without words. "You have been chosen," it seemed to say. "Sleep now. Wake when vengeance calls." 20 miles away, in the abandoned Millbrook district, Thomas Brennan was fighting for his life in a very different way. The mob had cornered him in the old Victorian house where he'd been hiding evidence of their money laundering operation. They'd barricaded the doors and windows before striking the match. "Should have minded your own business, Tommy," their leader called through the flames. "Journalists who dig too deep get burned." Thomas pounded against the boarded windows as smoke filled his lungs. The fire climbed the walls with hungry efficiency, and he realized with crystal clarity that he was going to die for trying to expose the truth. As the flames reached him, his last coherent thought was a promise: "If there's any justice in this world, I'll make them pay." Both men should have died that night. Both men did die that night. But death, as they discovered, was not always permanent. Marcus opened his eyes in the silted bottom of Crystal Lake, somehow breathing water as easily as air. His body had changed, skin pale and mottled, fingers webbed, eyes adapted to the eternal twilight of the depths. The creature that had taken him coiled nearby, massive and patient. "You are my vessel now," it communicated. "For too long, humans have poisoned these waters, disturbed the ancient peace. Through you, I will reclaim what was stolen." Thomas awakened in the charred ruins of the Victorian house, his flesh blackened but somehow whole. Fire danced along his fingertips without burning him, and when he spoke, smoke curled from his lips. The rage that had sustained him through death now fueled his resurrection. For months, they existed separately, Marcus learning to navigate his underwater domain while the lake monster taught him to command the waters themselves, and Thomas discovering that his connection to flame made him nearly unstoppable. Each began their own campaign of revenge. Marcus started with the chemical plant upstream that had been dumping toxins into Crystal Lake for decades. He rose from the water during the night shift, his transformed appearance sending workers fleeing in terror. But he wasn't interested in the workers, he wanted the executives. One by one, he visited their lakeside homes, dragging them into the depths to face the creature's judgment. Thomas hunted the crime family that had murdered him with methodical precision. Fire followed him wherever he went, consuming their businesses, their safe houses, their carefully constructed empire. He saved their leader for last, cornering him in the same type of Victorian house where Thomas had died. "Please," the man begged as flames licked at the walls. "I'll give you anything, money, information, whatever you want." "I want justice," Thomas replied, his voice crackling like burning wood. "But I'll settle for revenge." It was during Thomas's final confrontation that Marcus felt the disturbance in the lake. The creature stirred restlessly, sensing something that made even its ancient consciousness uneasy. "There is another like you," it whispered in Marcus's mind. "One who has cheated death through rage and flame. He may prove useful." Marcus emerged from Crystal Lake for the first time since his transformation, following an instinct he didn't fully understand. The scent of smoke led him through the forest to the burning Victorian house, where he found Thomas standing amid the flames, watching his enemy's final moments. "You're not entirely human anymore," Marcus observed, water still streaming from his transformed features. "Neither are you. The question is, what are we now?" "We're what happens when the world's cruelty goes too far," Marcus replied. "I'm Marcus. I died in Crystal Lake. Thomas, burned alive in Millbrook." He gestured to the flames surrounding them. "Seems we both got better." As they spoke, Marcus felt the lake monster's presence expanding, its consciousness touching Thomas's mind as well. The creature had been waiting centuries for an opportunity like this, two vessels of vengeance, each commanding a different element, each driven by justified rage. "Together, you could do more than settle personal scores," it communicated to both of them. "This region is poisoned by corruption, by those who profit from others' suffering. Clean it, purge it, make it pure again." Thomas smiled, and flames danced higher around them. "I like the sound of that. My investigation turned up dozens of corrupt officials, dirty cops, corporate criminals, more than I could handle alone. The lake connects to rivers, streams, water treatment facilities," Marcus added. "I can reach anyone who depends on the water supply." "And you?" "Fire spreads," Thomas said simply, "especially when it has a purpose." They shook hands in the burning house, sealing a pact that would terrorize the corrupt for years to come. Marcus would emerge from any body of water to drag the guilty into the depths, while Thomas would appear wherever flames burned to deliver his own brand of justice. Their first joint operation targeted a human trafficking ring operating out of a marina on Crystal Lake. Marcus disabled their boats from below while Thomas set their warehouse ablaze from above. The criminals found themselves trapped between water and fire, with nowhere to run. "Who are you?" one of them screamed as Marcus rose from the lake, his transformed features terrible in the firelight. "We're what you made us," Thomas replied, stepping through the flames unharmed. "We're the consequence of a world that forgot justice." The lake monster's satisfaction rippled through the water as its chosen vessels worked in perfect harmony. For the first time in centuries, the ancient creature felt hope that the balance might be restored. Word of the mysterious duo spread through the criminal underworld like wildfire, literally, in some cases. They called them the Lake Devil and the Burn Man, never realizing they were dealing with two men who had been pushed beyond death itself. Marcus and Thomas established their base in the ruins of the Victorian house, which Thomas had rebuilt with flame-resistant materials. The structure sat at the perfect midpoint between Crystal Lake and the urban areas where corruption festered. From there, they planned their campaigns with methodical precision. "The mayor's been taking bribes from the waste management company," Thomas reported, reviewing files he'd recovered from various sources. "They've been dumping toxic materials in the watershed." "I've seen the effects downstream," Marcus confirmed. "Fish populations are collapsing. The creature is displeased." They struck during the mayor's lakeside fundraising gala. Marcus emerged from the water as Thomas ignited the decorative torches around the venue. In the chaos that followed, corrupt officials found themselves face to face with their crimes made manifest. "You poisoned the water for profit," Marcus told the mayor as he dragged him toward the lake. As the lake water lapped at his expensive shoes. "Please, I can explain." "Explanations are for the living," Thomas interrupted, flames reflecting off the dark water. "You had your chance to do the right thing." As Marcus pulled the mayor deeper into Crystal Lake, the ancient creature's approval resonated through the water. One by one, the corrupt officials at the gala faced similar fates, some dragged into the depths, others consumed by flames that seemed to burn with supernatural intensity. The partnership between Marcus and Thomas grew stronger with each operation. They developed an almost telepathic understanding, coordinating their attacks with devastating precision. The lake monster's influence expanded through Marcus, allowing him to sense corruption wherever water flowed, while Thomas's connection to flame let him track the lies that burned in guilty hearts. Their next target was Judge Patricia Hawthorne, who had been taking bribes to reduce sentences for violent criminals. She lived in a penthouse overlooking Crystal Lake, believing her wealth and position made her untouchable. She was wrong. Marcus infiltrated the building's water system while Thomas disabled the fire suppression equipment. When they confronted her in her study, surrounded by law books that had become meaningless props in her corrupt career, she tried to bargain. "I have information," she pleaded. "Names, dates, bank accounts. I can give you everyone." "We already know everyone," Thomas replied, smoke curling around his words. "The creature sees all that touches the water. The flames reveal all that burns with guilt." "But we appreciate the confession," Marcus added as water began seeping through the walls. "It makes this easier." Judge Hawthorne's screams echoed across the lake that night, but no one came to investigate. The locals had learned to stay indoors when strange lights danced over Crystal Lake's surface. Months passed, and their legend grew. The Lake Devil and the Burn Man became bogeymen whispered about in corporate boardrooms and political backrooms. Some tried to flee the region, but Marcus could follow them through any water source, and Thomas could manifest wherever fire burned, which, in the modern world, was everywhere. Dr. Elizabeth Kane, the pharmaceutical executive who had been dumping experimental chemicals into the watershed, tried to escape by private jet. She made it as far as the airport before Marcus emerged from a water fountain in the terminal. The sprinkler system activated moments later, but instead of water, flames poured from the nozzles as Thomas manifested through the building's fire safety system. "Nowhere to run," Marcus observed as Dr. Kane backed against a window overlooking the tarmac. "Nowhere to hide," Thomas added, his form wreathed in supernatural fire. "Please," she whispered. "I was just following orders. The company demanded profits." "The lake doesn't care about your excuses," Marcus said. "And neither do the families you poisoned." The ancient creature's voice echoed in both their minds. "She has caused enough suffering. End this." Dr. Kane's fate was sealed in that moment, but her death served a greater purpose. News of her disappearance sent shockwaves through the corporate world. Other executives began confessing their crimes, hoping that cooperation might save them from the Lake Devil's judgment. It didn't. Thomas and Marcus had moved beyond simple revenge. They were agents of a cosmic balance, instruments of an ancient justice that predated human law. The lake monster's influence grew stronger with each corrupt soul they claimed, its power spreading through the entire watershed. Police Chief Robert Morrison, who had been covering up crimes for the highest bidder, barricaded himself in his office with armed guards. He thought concrete walls and loyal officers would protect him. He was wrong. Marcus rose through the building's plumbing while Thomas manifested in the electrical system, overloading circuits until sparks became flames. The guards fled as supernatural fire and water converged on Morrison's position. "You can't do this," Morrison screamed as his office filled with smoke and steam. "I'm a law enforcement officer." "You were," Thomas corrected, his voice crackling with the sound of burning justice. "Now you're just another criminal facing judgment." The lake monster's satisfaction was palpable as Morrison joined the growing collection of corrupt souls in Crystal Lake's depths. Each victory strengthened their bond, made their powers more potent, expanded their reach. By winter, the entire region had been transformed. Corruption withered wherever Marcus and Thomas walked. Politicians resigned rather than face the Lake Devil's judgment. Corporate executives fled to other states, abandoning their toxic enterprises. The water ran cleaner, the air smelled less of industrial poison, and for the first time in decades, fish returned to Crystal Lake in healthy numbers. But their work wasn't finished. The creature's ancient consciousness reached out through underground rivers and aquifers, sensing corruption in distant cities. Its chosen vessels had proven themselves capable of more than local justice. They could be instruments of global purification. There's a weapons manufacturer in Detroit, Marcus reported during one of their planning sessions. They've been selling defective armor to soldiers, knowing it would fail in combat. And a pharmaceutical company in Atlanta that's been testing experimental drugs on homeless populations, Thomas added, flames dancing around his fingers as he spoke. The lake monster's approval rippled through the water. Expand the cleansing. Let justice flow like water, burn like flame, until all corruption is purged. Marcus and Thomas exchanged a look of perfect understanding. They had become something greater than human, something necessary in a world that had forgotten the meaning of justice. Road trip? Thomas suggested with a grin that was equal parts human warmth and supernatural menace. Road trip, Marcus agreed, water swirling around his transformed features. They left Crystal Lake that night, but they didn't travel alone. The ancient creature's essence flowed with them through every stream, every river, every drop of water that connected their targets to the source of their power. And wherever they went, flames followed. Not the destructive fire of chaos, but the purifying blaze of absolute justice. The Lake Devil and the Burn Man had become legends, but legends, as they had learned, never truly die. They simply wait in the depths and dance in the flames, ready to emerge whenever the world forgets that some crimes demand more than human punishment. In Crystal Lake, the water ran clear for the first time in generations, and the ancient creature slumbered peacefully in the depths, knowing its chosen vessels would continue the work of purification wherever corruption dared to take root. Justice, after all, was eternal, and so were those who served it.